I want to let you know that it's never too late to travel the world. Like, there is an entire world out there waiting for you. And this is why so many Americans now, with the current administration, are looking at everything going on and saying, you know what, I think it's time I get my passport. I think it's time for me to leave and diversify, divest from America and not return. I want to tell you a story, okay? I'm going to close this atlas. I love atlases. I love the way that you can just view the earth, see different maps. It feels like you're on an adventure. That's why I love books. I'm actually speaking to you right now near my bookshelf, okay? But that's besides the point. I want to tell you this story about how Americans used to be able to travel overseas. It used to seem kind of inaccessible, something that was only devoted for the elite rich and the elite colonizers and all of these different demographics of people. Back in my grandparents' time, you know, they were born in the 1930s, late 1930s. They grew up, and in their day and age, you know, they preferenced education. They loved education. They invested in college, invested in knowledge, invested in making sure their boys got to college, who my dad was. He's passed away now, but making sure their children had a love for education and adventure, because they actually, growing up when they were young, a young married couple, okay, my grandfather in the military, they flew overseas as Americans, and they were the first in their family lineages since the slave trade to leave America. That's phenomenal. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, because we would hear these stories growing up, but as an American, I didn't think much of it. I was just like, oh yeah, they went overseas, great, they were in the military, cool, right? Because I have a lot of people in my family that have traveled overseas and were in the military and in different high-level careers. But now that I think about it, I'm like, wow, that is astronomical. That's enormous. That's huge. Because it certainly paved the way for me to have this type of adventurous spirit, to where I can go into a new country at a moment's notice and know that I'm going to be welcome there because of the good intentions in my heart and my willingness to be humble and learn about the people. But you see, in America, things are just too bad. I don't know if you've seen what's happening right now with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She's phenomenal, by the way. She's standing up to the neocolonialism, neo-Nazis, aka this current administration and the Musk administration, if I can say that. She's standing up to them boldly when nobody else is really even speaking up and saying anything. And I applaud her for that. I think that's fantastic. But for me and my lineage and my husband's lineage, we knew that we didn't want to spend another 100 years fighting, getting our children ready to fight. Like, okay, you got to be 10 times more. You got to fight. You got to keep fighting. You know, we've been fighting 300, 400 years and just keep fighting. And then one day it'll be something. Instead, we took the route that is also synonymous with when you are in a tough space neurologically. You have a fight or flight response. And that's just human nature. That's normal. There's nothing bad about that. You can learn a lot from your fight or flight response, which will dictate and show you what's safe and what's not safe. But we took the flight route. And we're glad that we did. We are so exceedingly glad. But I'm talking to you about this because you can also take that route. You don't have to continue fighting, because what happens when we continue fighting at a table that was never built for us is that we intrinsically say we are not valuable unless we are fighting. I personally believe that I am valuable, that my children are valuable, that my husband is valuable, and that you are valuable outside of fighting. I don't get any value in fighting. My identity is not rooted in fighting. That's why I'm not one to debate. I don't argue with people. This is something that I learned from my forefathers, my dad, my grandfather. They just didn't debate. They didn't argue. They were some of the most peaceful men that you could ever find in life. And it's because they didn't care what other people think. They knew who they were for themselves, and they knew where they were going, and they knew what they were trying to do. And so I think back to the times when I'd hear these wonderful stories about how, you know, they were in the Philippines and Vietnam, and like, then, you know, they were in Europe for a time. My uncle was in Europe for the time, and all these cool things. They didn't spend a whole lot of time in Africa. But me personally, growing up the way I grew up in a community where people did not look like me, I was the only one that looked like me, I had an innate desire to go to Africa. I didn't know it at that time. The innate desire at that time was actually, I want to be amongst my people. But I found out at 18, 19, 20, I was like, but the culture of this society is decaying. And so logically, for me, it made sense. I was like, okay, if this culture is decaying and this society is decaying, and I have children, I was a young mother, and I have children, so the only logical thing is to go to somewhere where people look like me, but the culture is not decayed. The culture is alive. The customs are alive. The livelihood is alive. The country is thriving. There's organic food. There's culture everywhere you go down the street. There's beauty. There's peace. There's safety. There's stability. America has never been a safe place for our people or for any people, and it never will be again. Right now, we are witnessing a type of modern day slavery that's going to happen. Trump announced with Marco Rubio, the Republican governor of Florida, they went to El Salvador. Marco Rubio did, at least. And he spoke and he was like, yes, we're so excited. El Salvador has agreed to deport some of the Native Americans, the Puerto Ricans, and the criminals that we have in the jail cells currently in America that are already American citizens. By the way, Puerto Ricans are also American citizens. And he said, yeah, they're willing to just buy them from us. They're willing to take them. This is fantastic. They seem very excited about it. And I have to wonder what side of this equation you want to be on, because I've decided a long, long time ago, and those on our channel have as well. We've been getting so many testimonies recently in our comments from subscribers that were like, yes, I made it to Ghana. Yes, I made it to Costa Rica. Yes, I made it to South Africa. Yes, I made it to Tanzania. Yes, I made it to Nigeria. Yes, I made it to Ethiopia. Yes, I made it wherever they were going in the world and living their best lives, Cape Verde even. And they're like, thank you so much for sharing this on your channel, because there's not a lot of people who speak about this in our community. A lot of us are so fight. But for those of you, the small remnant of you that hear deeply in your spirit that it's not time to fight, that it's actually time to escape and to live your best life elsewhere. There's nothing wrong with escapism. Escapism is actually what saved a lot of the prophets. The prophet Isaiah, though he was being beheaded by his people, there was a type of escapism that the Most High allowed him to receive. As they're trying to behead him, cut him in half, do all these things to him and torture him, of course, his body, when you're in extreme amount of pain, you go into escapism. He became delusional and he could start seeing the kingdom of heaven. Now, to somebody on the outside, that may seem like, oh, he's in such a bad state, but actually, he was entering into the goodness of the Most High. Escapism isn't your enemy. Escapism is your deliverance. The very word deliverance denotates that there's some type of traffic or some type of movement that has to be made. I mean, think of a delivery driver. That's someone that's coming to you. They have to move to get to you. They can't be stagnant to be a delivery driver. And so that very root, deliverance, denotates the fact that you have to be moving in some direction, because if you're always in a war, if you're always in chaos throughout your generations, hundreds and hundreds of years, then what does that produce in your DNA? Not good things. And so we know that this is the set apart time for the redemption, for the adventurism, for the luxury, for the all the goodness that the Most High has for us in these various places that he will show us to go to on the earth, to heal our children after us, to become the African people that we were created to be the humans we were created to be, to live freely and abundantly without all of the stress, to be able to be creators again, to be entrepreneurs again, and not to be strapped down by a 9-to-5 where your creativity is choked out and brutalized and slammed against a wall in the name of corporate America, where they can fire you without notice and throw away your retirement, because let's not pretend that that doesn't happen. All of these pension and I'll get this and I'll get that, and they pull the rug out from under you, but then you manipulate your brain into thinking it didn't really happen that way, but it did. If you would allow yourself to feel the truth once in a while, then you would feel how dire that situation is, and your nervous system would be able to properly respond to what's happening around you, and then the Most High could work in your favor, because your prayers would be on accord with the desires of your heart that align with the Most High's will to deliver you. And so I leave you with that today. You can live your best life abroad. Join the ranks of hundreds and thousands of us who are living their best lives abroad throughout all territories of the earth, and not looking back. It's much more simple than you think. All you need is that blue passport, your international bank accounts, your online business, and above all, your faith in the Most High. and you'll be good. You'll be living your best life. Shalom, shalom.